Thank you. I would like to call the meeting in order. Members, honorable members, can we take our seats, please? The meeting will start in the next one minute. Thank you. Honorable members, can we shift in front a bit? Those that are seated far away behind, shift in front, occupy the front seats.
Let me go and talk to them. They didn't get it.
Hold on. Yeah. Now I'll start with the speech. This one?
Yes, it's okay. The notes, yeah, you just read through the notes.
Okay. No problem. Honorable colleagues, please, kindly take your seats. We are running out of time. I think we can start. I gave you 1 minute, more than 1 minute. I think we can start here. For those that are still coming in, they will find us. Thank you very much. I think this is 8 minutes after 10 a.m. With no more wasting time, honorable members, dear colleagues, I am honored to chair this meeting of our Forum of Young Parliamentarians in my capacity as the president of the board of this forum. I am very pleased to see you all here today. As you may have noticed, we have a very dense and exciting agenda for today. After adopting the agenda, we will elect a new member for the board of the forum. As you know, one seat is currently vacant and should be filled by one man from the Eurasia group. After the election, we will have an opportunity to discuss recent developments in youth participation in our different countries. Then, we will discuss and distribute youth perspective to the different topics before this assembly. As you may know, the IP is electing its new president during the current assembly. Elections will take place at the last sitting of the IPU Governing Council on 18th October. The forum will have a hearing with the candidates later this morning. We will also be informed on the 19th World Festival of Youth and Students, which is taking place in Sochi City from 14th to 22nd October 2017. Afterwards, we will be able to discuss the forum's work plan and activities. A special segment for questions and answers will also take place during the second half of the meeting relating to the main findings and recommendations of the IPU UNDP Global Parliamentarian report on parliamentary oversight that will be launched during the current assembly. We will end our work by preparing for the next IPU assembly. In order to facilitate interaction debates, I invite you not to read out prepared statements. I emphasize again, in order to facilitate interactions debates, I invite you not to read out prepared statements, but rather engage in lively discussions. Due to our package agenda, oral contributions may not exceed to more than 2 minutes. So we're only giving each member of any of you want to say, who wants to contribute, we're only giving 2 minutes, not more than that. Please remember to mention your name and delegation before taking the floor. So the first order of the business is the adoption of the agenda. That is the first order. The agenda was posted on the IPU website. As we know, we are trying to be paper smart as IPU assemblies. You will find documents on the IPU assemblies website or the IPU's app. Are we all in agreement with this? With the agenda that has been posted on the IPU websites? That's where we shall find the proposed agenda. Are we all in agreement with this? Okay. Silence means we are in agreement. So thank you very much, colleagues. Let's proceed to the next. Yeah. Let's proceed to the next agenda. We are heading to the elections of at least one member of our board. As you know, one seat is vacant on the board of the Forum of Young Parliamentarians. According to our rules, it is to be filled by one man from the Eurasian group. The term of office for the vacant seat will end in March 2019. The usual procedure is for geopolitical groups to nominate their candidates for the board and communicate their names in writing in advance of the forum's meeting. The deadline to submit candidature by the Eurasia group was yesterday. So I would like to invite Zainab to say something about this. Can you please give us the names of the nominees on this?
Sure, Madam President. Yes, we have received a candidature on time from the Eurasia Group. The proposal from the Eurasia Group for you to agree on is the member of the delegation from Kazakhstan, Mr. Bakhtiar Maken, who I believe is here. This is the candidature that the forum has for the vacant position for a male member of the board from the Eurasia Group.
Thank you very much, Zainab. I think the new member is elected. So I would like to invite my colleague to say a brief presentation of himself or introduction of himself. Yeah, you can sit from there.
Thank you very much for the good organization, Inter-Parliamentary Union, for the Russian Federation for organizing it. Good afternoon, dear participants of forum, dear colleagues. Today we see that 21st century continent to adjustment to the formation of development of today's youth and century global competition, there is hard principle change of disappear. In many countries, youth issues are almost identical. That's for modern young people on increasingly seeking to find ways to protect the rights of interest, creating different institutions and organizations from the school authorities and student government and various civic organizations. Young people more and openly declare the desire to build a new country, so all conditions have been created to propose in the Kazakhstan. There are real social elevators, for example, the international scholarship for the president of Kazakhstan, Bolashak. The Bolashak was a translator for the future, which has allowed more than 12,000 young people for the Kazakhstan to get education in the best universities in the world, 23 years. Today, these young, ambitious people of the building a new economy of the counter development science and business, sports, and other spheres. There is a professional education for all program in education system, which gives opportunity to everyone to get the working specialty with guarantees place of work and production. Parliament is linked between society and the state in Kazakhstan. Everybody knows the president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, initiated so issues a distribution of power between the branches of state power, the government of the parliament in Kazakhstan. Today, the role of the parliament has been created. It has changed not in a qualitative but also quantifiable. The number of deputies will increase among the operating prominent public figures, scientists, entrepreneurs, more women, representatives of various ethnic groups. Young people actively involved in political reforms in country use local consuls. The Council of the Affairs under the President of Kazakhstan are established and operating in the regions, addressing the most pressing issue we felt is youth poverty. In due time, President has urged the world community to support an initiative of Kazakhstan. Because it's long time and just a recommendation for this forum. I believe that today our common and growth youth Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, all countries, is an effective, versatile tool of the discussion of pressing global issues and making joint decisions. In this regard, we need to create conditions for effective communication and long-term interaction to continue an open dialogue and the exchange of the experience of young parliamentarians and representatives of youth organizations of all countries. Carry out of the depending of strengthening of the policy of intercultural dialogue, to development of the plan of joint actions, the prevention of the religion, extremism and terrorism and the world problem. I am convinced that the revolt not be unloved proven if you are based of trust and cooperation. And maybe all the world, guys, of this exchange of experience in the development of the youth policy of all countries, addressing global issues and related youth. Thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, members. I think you have heard him. In order to know that you have agreed with his election, I think he will be elected by acclamation.
Does the forum agree?
Does the forum agree on this?
By acclamation?
Yeah.
By acclamation?
Thank you very much, honorable members. Dear colleagues, I would also like to draw your attention to the list of vacancies for other IPU bodies. That is on the 137th Assembly's website and on the Assembly's app. I encourage you to submit your candidature to these openings when and where possible. Please remember that if you decide to submit your candidature, you should do it through your respective geopolitical groups. The objective of the forum is to bring a youth perspective to the IPU and our presence in the communities and working groups as a fundamental for this. So I would like to congratulate you. So members, let's proceed to the next item. The next item is the country's update on youth participation. Colleagues, this agenda item allows us to access progress in strengthening youth participation and exchange good practice and challenges so that we can work together to make recommendations and help to inform each other of strategies to empower youth. Madam Zainab, you can throw more light on that?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So just in order not for us to waste too much time, and because the objective is to hear from you about your country's situations, I would just like to remind you of something that you already know. It is that globally only 1.9% of the young parliamentarians of the world only 1.9% of the parliamentarians of the world are below the age of 30. Only 1.9%. The situation is a little bit better for the under 40. It is about 12%. And a little better also for the under 45, which is, you know, a definition of the age that is rather wild. This proportion is at around 23%. What the IPU has been doing about this until now is to raise awareness globally to the importance of youth participation. Young people represent half of the world population, and their representation in parliament is, of course, very, very far from what they represent in terms of demographics in the world and in each and every country. So the IPU has been working on the issue of youth participation. It adopted a resolution in 2010 inviting, encouraging and requesting from parliaments, governments, political parties, civil society and all other actors involved to support youth participation, including by the adoption of measures such as quotas, such as aligning the age to be eligible with the age to vote, to ensure that more young MPs, more young people have an access, a chance to be elected at a young age. We also call for a particular attention to the participation of young women because they are doubly discriminated based on their age and also based on their sex, of course. So this is in a nutshell what the situation of youth participation globally is, and I believe that we will have a regional perspective now, Madam Chairperson.
Yes, I thank you, Ms. Zainab. I think this is now more informative on this brief recap overview. Members, allow me to turn on the information on the youth's participation at regional levels. I would like to invite our colleague, Mr. Raphael Iwoki from Nigeria, the former member of the board of the Forum of Young Parliamentarians, to report briefly on the conclusions of Regional Conference of Young Parliamentarians of Africa that took place 2 weeks ago in Abuja, Nigeria, and that focused on empowering youth, enhancing political participation for more inclusive and peaceful societies. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Good day, honorable colleagues. We want to thank the IPU and members of the African parliaments who participated in the just concluded African Regional Conference in Nigeria. From a country perspective, the Young Parliamentarians Forum in Nigeria was strong enough to take up some initiatives which led to the passage of the Not Too Young to Run bill, which aimed at reducing the age of eligibility to hold public office, elected office, from 40, now 25 in Nigeria. And I'm happy that IPU, with the support, had made this as a global campaign, which has also been adopted by the United Nations. Taking it from there, the conference saw African parliamentarians coming together to discuss about youth empowerment and political inclusion. A summary of the outcome of the regional conference is a decision was taken by parliamentarians to take up this initiative and replicate them in their different parliaments, especially in countries where the age of participation is still high. We affirmed that commitment. We also urged the leadership of parliaments across the world, not only in Africa, to see the need to support for the establishment and operation of youth caucuses, the Young Parliamentarian Forum. We realized that while, yes, you have Committee on Youth, the statutory role is to oversee the Ministry of Youth with funding and budget allocation. But the youth caucuses or youth forum serves as an advocacy group that speaks for young people on any issues bordering on their rights, on their privileges, on their expectation, and also serve as a bridge for their voice to be heard and complaints and grievances to be sent to government. I think through this way, the impact of youth caucuses can more be felt in the different countries. Another third issue is the encouragement of IPU in ensuring youth inclusion in most of their strategic committees, which is on the pipeline now, so that we see a youth perspective as a contribution at every level of the committees in the IPU. And I think, I remember in the last, we made a proposal for which we know is being considered by the Executive Committee and Council, where incentives will be given to delegation that comes up more with young parliamentarians so that we can build on our experiences. So I wouldn't want to take much time, but I want to say the conference was really a bonding force with parliamentarians from Africa, and we had 21 countries, about 21 countries participating, and I'm happy the African rep on the board was also there to share with us and give his insights. And I want to commend the IPU for this support. It has really built the spirit back in Nigeria, and we will use this opportunity to appeal, because we can't succeed as a forum in any parliament if we don't get the support of leadership. So we need to get the buy-in of leadership, and that is what we saw in Nigeria. And we want to also thank the Secretary General that he found time to be there with us. That is inspiring, and we believe this act will be taken up by different African parliaments that participated, and we see this growing up more throughout the IPU related parliaments. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I just want to mention that we have copies of the outcome documents and of the conference, so please, when you're going out, you pick up one, so you keep for the archives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raphael, for your recent update. And I know the conference that took place in Nigeria was a tremendous conference, that where we had a lot of youths, we had youth speak, at least on youth perspectives. Now allow me to invite, in this short time, to invite Ms. Raya Matara, member of board of the Forum of Young Parliamentarians, to give us the recent update or development in the Arab region. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much. In the name of God, the Clement, and I would like to thank you for this valuable opportunity to speak to young parliamentarians and overview a few highlights of the experience of the Omani youth with regard to the activities of the youth as a sector of any human society. It is worth noting in this regard that His Excellency the Sultan has assumed his position at the age of 30 and led our country to great development in many fields. And the youth are taking up their responsibility in our society, especially in the field of voluntary work, whether on the individual or collective levels, and in many fields of educational, cultural, and scientific importance. In this regard, there was a prize by Sultan Qaboos for voluntary work for the youth who participate in these activities that serve their society. The Omani youth is continually achieving local, regional, and international achievements in all fields. Many of them are relying on their own initiatives. They are also achieving many results in the scientific fields and at the best scientific centers and universities around the world. According to the latest statistics, the overall total of youth from Oman in 2015-2016, achieved 970 achievements in the field of literature, of photography, of sports, etc. The Omani youth are highly active on social media. There are YouTube channels run by Omani youth showing some society issues that require specific solutions. And we are witnessing a high amount of youth which are working and graduating and also being elected to the Shura Council. The two councils we have at the Parliament are allowing the chance for youth to participate and to highlight their culture. The student consultative councils at the Higher Education Council are also participating in providing the point of view of youth and highlighting their skills and contributions. And I cannot be able to sufficiently describe all the fields of activities and achievements of the Omani youth. I find that we at the forum need to also speak about the youth as an unexploited, uninvested in wealth, and we need to find all the solutions that are necessary to find the ability to draw on this wealth and to achieve the development of our countries. Therefore, let us listen to the youth and highly value their opinions and contributions, and try to take their contributions into account. Youth today are not able to provide their contribution without an actual translation of their efforts into actual implementation and projects. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Raya. I think we have heard from her what has been happening in the Arab region. Members, honorable colleagues, I think it's high time that we need to take appropriate measures and create all platforms to involve our youths in, whether it is politically, economically, or even culture-wise. We need to have the youth on board such that we can proceed without leaving anybody behind. And now, as we look forward, we have heard from the two different regions, so I'm now leaving. Sorry? Sorry? I beg your pardon. I think there is one more region remaining. Sorry for that. We have Mr. Abdul Rafael, member of the board of Young Parliamentarians from Maldives, to present the conclusion of regional seminar of Asia Pacific. I'm sorry for that. Yes, you're welcome on board.
Thank you very much. As soon as I got elected in March, fortunately there was one regional meeting of Young Parliamentarians Asia Pacific region organized by the Sri Lankan Parliament. And this meeting topic was advancing inclusive and peaceful societies and preventing violence against extremism in April 25 to 26. And we got 39 men and 9 young women from 11 countries participating in this forum. The average age was 39 years, and we had very good discussion and participation on the concepts, framework, and regional specific issues pertaining to violent extremism and propose action for its prevention. As I've given only 1 minute, I don't think we will be able to discuss further on this. But it was really a very interesting meeting, and the meeting minutes and the report is uploaded on the website as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that short and brief update. Honorable colleagues, we have heard from the 3 regions now. I think I'm looking forward to listening to recent developments in your respective countries. Because of time, we lack time actually, so I would like to only start by 5 people, and then each is allowed only to speak for 2 minutes, and then after that we can proceed. I start with Russia, and then Finland, Malawi? Yeah, Malawi, Iran.
Okay. It's okay, I'm taking care of it.
Okay.
Iran to begin with.
Russia, Finland, Iran to begin with, Malawi, and Iran.
To begin with.
To start with, yeah? To start with. It is only allowed to speak for 2 minutes.
С кого начинает? Дорогие друзья, приветствуем вас в России.
Okay, friends, I would like to welcome you to Russia, and I'm happy for you to come to Russia.
Let me dwell upon a couple of things that we should discuss, I think, as parliamentarians. It is extremely important to know or to see the wish and the will of a young person to work in the government. And what is also of great importance are the actions that these young people undertake. But who will teach them to do politics and to do public good? Well, of course, these are the public society institutions. And we parliamentarians must give a chance for these young people to do what they are willing to do, and we have to create all the necessary conditions. We have to lay the grounds for political socialization, and public organizations play an important role. And these are the NGOs and different public organizations that these parliamentarians can start working in, and then they can continue and grow into something more important, and that will teach them how to do politics and how to become governmental officials. I think the lowest level, the first level, the entry level, are different local authorities or self-governing authorities, because in Russia we have territorial local authorities where young people can already start doing something from age of 16, and then they can be elected to higher level authorities starting from 18. The next level, well, of course, it's only possible if you're following a specific algorithm and you are not trying to become the president of the country right away, because you don't have an experience for that, and you can do a lot of mistakes. You can err a lot, and young parliamentarians must remember, because we were also moving along a certain path. We started from something, right? We did some community work first, and then we moved on. So an MP of the Russian State Duma, one can become at an age of 21. Well, for a young person to be able to show his or her leadership qualities, we have a whole system of youth parliaments in regions. We even have youth governments. We even have the Russian School of Politics, and we have political parties which are trying to establish their own political schools. Within the framework of the United Russia Party, I've been in charge of such a school for 5 years in a row. But let me note one thing. We have a whole range of international forums and Russian local forums where we're trying to identify those young activists, and we give them a chance to realize themselves. In 2016, as far as such youth events are concerned here in Russia, we had 176,000 people participating in them. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Russia. Now we have Finland. May you take the floor, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Greetings from Finland. I'm a little MP, and I, of course, welcome you to Helsinki if you have the time, only 3.5 hours from St. Petersburg by train, so you're welcome to come to Finland as well. I want to highlight the importance of political youth wings, at least in the case of Finland, and I would say that many European countries, the political youth wings have been a really important tool for young people to get involved in the politics and to gain the national coverage that they would need to get actually elected. It's not only enough that the young people are participating, they also have to get elected in actual elections, and that's always harder for young people than for the older generation who have more connections, more money and such. And I highlight also the importance of empowering women, because the fact is that the country that doesn't empower its women in politics is using only half of its abilities. So that is also very important. For personally, I would say that our system has been good in a sense that I'm also group leader of our parliamentary group in the parliament, so our system is empowering the youth, and this is something that I would like to see in all over the world. I would also like to highlight two concerns that I have, especially for the youth in politics in Europe, and I would say that these are concerns for other countries as well. Of course, the unemployment rate also in Finland is over 20%, and in many European countries even as high as 50%. This is a great concern. And the so-called migration crisis, in a sense that it radicalizes the youth in many European countries. Unfortunately, many young people, from my understanding, are turning to so-called extremist parties, and this is of concern to me among the young population. There are different reasons why these phenomena are problematic in different countries, in different regions, but I think the same challenge is for all of us when it comes to immigration and unemployment, and this is something that I would like to hear views on from other countries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're right on time. We have Malawi. Have the floor.
Thanks so much, Madam Chairperson, for giving me the floor. Mine will just be in brief, just to give a brief update on what is happening in Malawi. After launching the youth parliamentarians in Malawi, we have currently a committee that is looking at the youth participation, so that many youth should participate in political meetings as well as political elections. Currently, let me report that due to that establishment of that committee, through the establishment of that committee, the youth currently, we have 3 by-elections that is currently happening in three constituencies. Let me report that this committee is really working hard and ensuring that so many youth should participate in this by-election. We engaged with these candidates. We made sure that this committee should give more support to these youth who wants to participate in this by-election. Currently, let me report that I'm very 100% sure that all these constituencies will be won by these youth coming from these young parliamentarians that we really engage, we work hand in hand with. We have got also 3 wards in different constituencies. Many candidates that are there, there's also youth. We made sure that we should engage these youth so that maybe we should make sure that these youth, they should be in that leadership position. We discourage the many old people that wants to take part in these elections. But we made sure that with the establishment of this youth committee in our national parliament, that IPU also supported that we should have this youth participation, and also we should have this youth committee in parliament. We really are working hard in Malawi parliament. We want these youth to take that positions. We made sure that even the councillors, they should take part in this leadership position. This came into fruit because the IPU really made sure that as parliaments, we should make sure that youth, they should be engaged in this kind of leadership position. So I just wanted to give this brief statement. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Malawi. Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. With regard to the subject of this meeting, I am willing to recite from the words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who says, all the people are equal like the teeth of a comb. From the time of Adam to now, Arabs are no superior to non-Arabs, as are not those with red and white skins to the black ones. What gives to an individual superiority over others in the fear of God. These cases are just some clear indication of potential of religions to be used as an instrument of promotion of peace and prevention of religion-centered and ethnic-based extremism. I'm sure that other religions have similar potential as well. Therefore, the emphasis is placed on the unity of religions, and equality of human could act as preemptive force against religions-centered and ethnic-based violence and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iran. I think I can now add more 5. That is India, Zimbabwe, Kuwait, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia for now. Thank you. India, you may have the floor. Yes, India.
Dear sisters and brothers, thanks for the opportunity. I'm very glad and proud to be the country from India, which has the world's highest population of the youth, where you can see at the back, vote for India also. Actually, in our country, it's happy to say that India provides the opportunity for the youth to participate in the democratic political process, right from the local bodies to the parliament. Right now, in Lok Sabha lower house, we have 33 members, youth members, and Rajya Sabha, we have 12 youth members. It's a historical thing. And in political parties also, we have youth wings, which plays an important role not only in shaping and strengthening party programs and policies, but also carrying party messages to the people with vigor. They are trained to handle future challenges. And very important initiative by our country, as our earlier colleague said, the youth parliament, thereby effectively involving the youth in governance process. And also, one of my recommendations to the IPU is that youth parliamentarians should have been informed more by the IPU. We should invite more member of parliaments, youth parliaments. I think many might not have known by this program. They should be informed individually to exchange their ideas over the global forum. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, India. Zimbabwe. Before Zimbabwe, actually, unfortunately, I have to go and give speech in the opening of the General Assembly on behalf of our forum. So I think in the meantime, I will be replaced by Ruth from Bolivia. Thank you. So Ruth, it's Zimbabwe's floor. Thank you.
From the Secretariat perspective, just a quick remark. When the President of the Forum is absent, she is replaced by the youngest member of the board. And the youngest member of the board of the Forum of Young Parliamentarians is Mrs. Ruth from Bolivia.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm actually very happy, Chairperson, that we've got this agenda item number 3. If you still remember very well, when we were in Zambia, Chairperson, I proposed that for us to make sure that this committee is making any progress, there is a need for us to have a report back from each and every country regarding the successes, regarding the progress made on youth participation. Chairperson, I'll go straight on our success in Zimbabwe. Number 1, we've got a youth ministry in Zimbabwe which focuses mainly on youth participation. And in addition to this, we've got also a portfolio committee of parliament which focus on youth participation as well. The other success in Zimbabwe is that of our involvement in the IPU delegation. So that's an achievement. I'll go straight to the challenges according to the question, Madam Chairperson. Inadequate funding is also another challenge which is affecting the youth for them to participate in the decision-making processes. And also the issue of unemployment, I'm sure, is affecting all the countries here. On recommendation, Parliament must make policies which encourage youth participation. And also, there is a need for awareness campaign in our countries to make sure that the youth understand the importance for them to participate in decision-making process. I thank you.
Muy bien, un saludo.
Thank you. My name is Ruth Metsaida from Bolivia. I'm delighted to be here. I speak Spanish, as you all have heard, so I hope you'll be able to understand me anyway through the interpretation. And now we are going to give the floor to the representative of Kuwait.
Thank you so much. Sayyid al-Rais.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the members of Parliament, greetings upon you. We all believe in the role of the youth. The youth are the leaders, are the future leaders. The youth are the main driver for the development of any successful society. The matter of caring for the youth is no longer a local or regional issue. It is now an international phenomenon. Maybe the most important indicator is our presence here in this forum. the international community institutions are paying attention to youth today and trying to use all their contributions and efforts in order to further our cause as youth members of parliament. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, the youth movement have seen a noticeable development around the world because the youth are the backbone of any successful society, and therefore today we have to integrate and include the youth in parliamentarian, cultural and economic activities. And despite the presence of honorable examples of youth participation, but there are many challenges still facing them, namely among which the lack of second backbenchers, rather, of youth, but we are witnessing the older generation holding on to power and preventing the youth from actively engaging and participating in our countries. I would like to highlight a few things. Over the past period and the recent times, we have seen participation of youth in many fields of politics and cultural activity. In our country, Sheikh Subah Al-Ahmed, our Emir, has responded to these initiatives and created the Youth Affairs Ministry, which responds to this need. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, we today have to change our thinking as parliamentarians. We have to shed a light on the need for finding further solutions and for working together and educating societies. It is normal for us to have different schools of thought, but we have to highlight that the importance of the youth in leading the future is a matter that we all agree upon, and therefore we need to have this as a goal for young parliamentarians at the IPU. Thank you.
Continuamos, por favor.
Thank you. Let's give the floor now to the representative of Bangladesh.
Hello everyone, this is Sabina Akhtar Tuhin from Bangladesh. I am really overwhelmed to attend this 137th IPU summit here in St. Petersburg, Russia. To me, IPU is the heart of parliamentarians around the world. IPU is a unique organization made up of national parliamentarians. This union protects and builds global democracy through political dialogue and concrete action. We all know IPU work on issues like health, sustainable development, human rights, peace and security, and moreover, encouraging young parliamentarians to move forward. I am here to say something about the young parliamentarians. First of all, I'd like to tell you everyone, I am from such a country where the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, started his political career at a very young age and was an outstanding young MP of his time. It has always been a great inspiration of all the young MPs like me in Bangladesh. IPU Young Parliamentarians, through IPU, the Forum of Young Parliamentarians was set up to separate our work to boost the participation of young people in parliaments and to help ensure young MPs play a full part in the work of Parliament. The forum also makes sure the youth voice is heard in global political decision making, both through greater participation of young MP at our meeting and through formal inputs into outcomes. It also ensures that there is a youth perspective in all our work and builds bridges with outside organization. My point of view, 6 months back when the 136th IPU summit was successfully held in my country, Bangladesh, I was really excited to see very young, talented MPs like Oshuri Morin from Uganda, Aslan Arna from Iceland, etc., etc. However, I am really aware of the number of young parliamentarians across the globe below 30 years of age. It's only around 2%. The overall figures for young MPs rise to 44.2% for those under 40.
Bangladesh. Gracias.
Thank you, Bangladesh, please.
কি বলো? 1 minute. 1 minute, I finish.
1 minute. Yes.
26% of those under 45 is the involved young people who participate politically in their community from early on are more likely to become engaged citizens and voters. So in order to have better young citizenship, politics is one of the best tools. Our government take many steps to encourage and engage young people in politics through digital development of the youngs. Today for the youth face many issues in the world, but these issues go unheard. Since the youth would better understand other young people, the best way to improve this newer generation would be through politics, which is the tools and used to
Bangladesh.
Please, Bangladesh, your time is up.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Let's give the floor now to the representative of the UAE.
Greetings of God be upon you. I am very happy to be present here with you, and we would like to thank the host country, Russia, for their hospitality. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me keep you abreast of the experience of the United Arab Emirates in enabling youth and empowering them in participating in decision making. In Emirates, we have signed many international agreements and treaties with regard to human rights, considering this is a civilizational commitment that we have and that highlights the importance of the participation of youth through their support of human rights policies and the respect for the rule of law. And therefore, at the Parliament of the United Arab Emirates, we are continually enabling projects that monitor and that study and analyze the current trends in our country. And we have an appointed youth minister who is 22 years old. And we have adopted the National Strategy for Youth Empowerment. And His Excellency Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai and the Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates, has adopted a number of efforts on social media to communicate with the youth. He discussed with the youth many ideas and proposals that aim to foster the government efforts in taking into account all their proposals and initiatives. And we have also concluded the first session of the Mohammed bin Zayed course for youth, which enables the empowerment of the youth and their participation along with government experts. There's also the Emirati Youth Forum, which includes a number of youth consultants who work with the UAE government and that creates circles for dialogue, and in addition to the number of institutions that have opened their doors to the youth.
Thank you.
Muy bien, continúa.
Thank you. And I'll give the floor to Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairs. By 2020, the working population in Indonesia will reach 70% of its total population. The Indonesian House Representative support the development of vocational education for youth by passing a regulation to allocate 20% of our national budget for education. Numerous regulations have been adopted to promote youth participation in public affairs. The minimum age for region and mayor candidates is 25, while the minimum age for governor candidate is 30 years old. The youngest mayor in Indonesia was elected in 2016 at 26 years old. The Indonesian House has also adopted the law on youth, which emphasizes the critical role of youth in national development. In the period of 2014 until 2019, 70.9% of Indonesian MPs are under 40 years old. Indonesian youth have becoming more interested in politics. This trend is partly due to ICT development and social media, which promote civic education and engagement. Through social media and technological advancement, advancement, the Indonesian youth are not just news consumer, but also news producer. They disseminate the ideas of modern democracy while generating enormous support from their peers. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Bahrain.
Gracias. In the name of God, All Merciful, All Compassionate, I would like to talk about the vision of Bahrain and its strategic vision and sustainable development. We have 17 strategic objectives, mainly the National Strategy for Youth 2011 to 2015. Before these objectives, we started working on this since 2003, of course. Under this primary objective were many initiatives, including the King Hamad Prize for Youth to achieve sustainable development, as well as encourage sports achievements, and the Youth City 2030, as well as Bahrain initiatives for the project of Arab Youth Ambassadors, and the tournament of Khalid bin Hamad for youth centers and those of the handicapped, as well as the Nasser bin Hamad International Prize for Youth Creativity. We've had 112 countries participate in this prize. As for the challenges that are faced by Bahraini youth is unemployment. The unemployment rate is now 4%. It's not high, it may not be high, but we want it to be 0% for unemployment. The other challenge is quality education and to stay up to date with technological developments. This is an ongoing challenge. Also, the increasing number of the population is another challenge. Life underwater, as well as life on the ground. There are also groups that are trying to work against the youth population and trying to change their ideas and influence their ideas. We have a committee for youth in the parliament, as well as the Shura Council. On the parliamentary level, we call upon parliaments to encourage youth to participate in the political process and to promulgate laws that will empower youth and youth groups in addition to raising awareness of youth of their rights and the role that they can play in their communities. In addition, we propose that a youth parliament is established to improve the level of youth on all levels and to organize conferences and meetings. I would also like to say that we need to have a clear challenge on the level of the civil society and the government and to differentiate between them. Gracias.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Cuba. Good morning, Excellency. I'd like to thank you and congratulate you. I've listened to a number of statistics that have been given here about people aged under 30 in parliaments, and as well as being an MP in my parliament, it's a great honour to be here today. Since the revolution in 1959, elections have only applied to those aged over 20. That's applied both to the House of Representatives and to the Senate. Since the revolution in my country, we've, however, made progress. And we've reduced the age to 16 since that date. At the provincial level, 8.5% of representatives are under 30. That means 52 people across the country are making their contribution. So young people are contributing. And of course, young people are the present as well as the future. We're always saying that they're the future, but they're also the present. And we really need to work on these goals together to ensure that they can make a bigger contribution. It's a moral obligation of ours to ensure that they can work and contribute to developing the world. That's a commitment that we should make as young parliamentarians, and we shouldn't ever give up that fight. I don't want to speak at great length, but it's important for Latin America and the Caribbean and the world at large to ensure that health is free and education's free. We need quality services, and we need that to be without discrimination on any grounds whatsoever. We're talking about human dignity here, so that's my commitment. Thank you. Thank you, Cuba. I now give the floor to Botswana.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll just be quite brief, just as an update on what has been happening in our part of the world. But first, let me thank the Russian Federation for hosting us. It's been a great experience thus far. I think we have realized that the key to having more young people participate is actually them understanding what a parliament is and what policy formulation is all about. And the drive that we've been having is all about really realizing the ways that you can access a parliament and your parliamentarians, a way that your parliament can serve you best. And so we've been highlighting that and working with a lot of NGOs and universities to just really know the 4 channels, which is asking questions, proposing motions, private members' bill, and so forth. And currently, as we speak, our Speaker of the National Assembly is on a Know Your Parliament drive around the country, just so young people get to understand that. But beyond that, we've also started ways in which we can reach young people. Just on the 11th of October, I held a tweet meet on sexual reproductive health for young girls, because it was the day of the girl child. And there we discussed all the issues around the girl child, and the recommendations that came from that tweet up will be used towards draft policies going into our sitting in November. And what we realized from that particular meeting is that it actually works to engage young people via social media. And as young parliamentarians, we shouldn't shy away from having tweet meets and having Facebook meetings as well, because they really help in leveraging youth experiences in Parliament, even though we might not have as many young people in Parliament, but they feel that the world...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muy bien.
Thank you. San Marino, please.
Thank you. San Marino is 35.7% of young people below 40 years. And in addition, both of our state presidents are under 40 years old, and the previous one was under 30, and she was a woman. This is a principle that is recognized also by UNESCO as San Marino as an exceptional testimony of the establishment of a representative democracy. Following the colleague from Cuba, in order to give the possibility of a real contribution of young perspective inside politics and social life, I think that formation is important in order to develop critical and free principles and ideas. And otherwise, the impact of young in society will be only hypocritical. And I mean, if we want really to success in change the world, as he said, is important, extremely important, formation, education, and critical of ideas, of spiritual and ideas. Thank you very much.
Gracias, San Marino.
Thank you, San Marino. I now give the floor to Benin. Thank you very much. Peace be with you. I am a member of the National Assembly in Benin, and I'd like firstly to congratulate our leaders for the successful meeting in Abuja. I'd also like to thank all those who came to Abuja. I think what we're discussing here this morning had already been said almost in its entirety in Abuja. How young people need to take more control. I think that's a very positive point to make, but another thing that we said in Abuja was that we don't put sufficient emphasis on the means by which young people can gain access to power. In Abuja, I also spoke about good quality youth. We shouldn't just choose young representatives because they are young. They also have to have a good sense of responsibility. They have to have a good sense of citizenship. If you look at a continent such as Africa, we really need good people. So thank you once again for the extraordinary hospitality that you've given us here. I say that to our Russian hosts. And I think that we need to think very carefully about our decisions because, as many people have said today and elsewhere, young people should take power. Thank you, Benin. I now give the floor to the representative of Chile.
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 Okay. Bueno, primero.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Chair, firstly, and I'd also like to extend my thanks to the Russian Federation for the excellent reception that we've received. It's a beautiful city that we're gathered in here. In Chile, fewer than 10% of our parliamentarians are 25 and under, and we've spoken here about the importance of youth participation in politics. But the truth is that to be involved in politics in a true democracy, you have to win an election. And you also have to make laws to protect citizens. In Chile, the incumbents, and I'm sure this applies to other countries as well, often prevent young people from gaining access to the parliament. In Chile, there are many young candidates, but there are very few young parliamentarians. And I think that's one of the major hurdles to overcome. In many cases, our parliamentarians are in parliament for 30 or 40 years, and that goes against the principles that we're here to defend. There are many obstacles to overcome then for young people to gain access to national parliaments, and this is a major challenge for the IPU. I think we need to work by looking at best practices, by sharing experiences and really bringing change to politics. We also need citizens to be more involved. I think with globalization and social networks, this is really within our reach. We can really bring the population closer to these issues. And I think if we manage to get more young people in parliaments, there'll be other challenges to face, of course, migration, topics such as that. But that's what we need to achieve. Thank you. Thank you, Chile.
Representante de Perú.
Peru, please. Thank you very much, Chair. I bring greetings from the Republic of Peru. Peru's population stands at 33 million, and 8 million of those people are young. And 6 million of those 8 million are voting age. My country has a law according to which youth stretches from 16 years to 29 years. In 2006 and 2007, affirmative action laws were created to promote the involvement of young people. Because young people should really be involved in deciding government policy on the development of youth. They should be involved in their own development. So now political parties presenting candidates for municipal and other elections have to include young people. That's now mandatory. So these laws brought positive consequences, and now we have around 5,000 young people in representative positions. But there's a slight difference with Chile and with other countries that have spoken this morning. The minimum age is 25 years in Peru for national parliament, and we have very few young parliamentarians in Peru. We have a law according to which affirmative action can't be carried out in terms of parliamentary representation for young people, but other ministries and other departments can take affirmative action. So we have ways of promoting youth in Peru. But we're very motivated to bring further change, and we feel that at the IPU we should really be promoting this type of measure. We hope that Peru will make further progress in future. Thank you, Peru. Thank you very much to everyone that's spoken. They were very positive statements. We know that we've got a very limited time today, so we have to play by the rules. Let's move on now to the work of the 137th Assembly.
Un punto importante de esta asamblea.
A key aspect of the Assembly is the resolution being examined by the Standing Committee on Democracy and Human Rights, which is looking to the 20th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Democracy. You can see the draft resolution on the website and through the mobile app, which you're all aware of. As you know, the Forum presented in writing its contribution to that resolution.
Por favor, indicando que Seina nos pueda un poquito explicar.
So I'll pass over to the Secretariat now for further explanation.
Bueno, continuando.
I'll explain further. This basically refers to the draft resolution. Contributions have been presented, and I'd like to thank those that have done that. I'd also like to thank Nathaniel, who may not be here, for his work, and he's the person to coordinate with if you need to make a contribution on Canada's activity. I think Canada's leading this work, so Seina.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You know that the Forum can submit written contributions to the co-rapporteurs of draft resolutions prepared at the IPU. This is the power that the Forum has to introduce a youth perspective in the draft resolutions being prepared by the different standing committees. So your colleague, Nathaniel Erskine-Smith from Canada, was appointed by the board of the Forum of Young Parliamentarians as the person who would prepare the written contribution on behalf of the Bureau of the Forum. And as your colleague Nathalie Erskine-Smith is unfortunately not here at this assembly, I would like to share with you the content of the written contribution that he had submitted to the draft resolution on sharing our diversity, the 20th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Democracy. So I will summarize the contribution in the proposals that it made. And the proposals are the following. The first one was to increase youth participation in politics and in parliaments by renewing and refreshing the profile of people who hold political office. And you will see that in the draft resolution, there is a paragraph on youth participation and then the importance to enhance it. The second proposal was to enhance youth representation in parliaments, including by considering the adoption of quotas and revising age restrictions to run for political office, among other measures. This was also very much taken on board by the co-rapporteurs of the draft resolution. Now, thirdly, the proposal made by the contribution was to modernize parliaments and political engagement. For example, parliamentarians should use social media to increase and encourage democratic engagement of young people. And this again had been taken on board by the co-rapporteurs of the draft resolution. The fourth recommendation made by the youth contribution was to empower parliamentarians and strengthen their independence. It was somehow included in one of the paragraphs. And the last one was to emphasize honesty, civility, and trust in democratic institutions. To promote initiatives to improve civic literacy among youth, including through schools and youth organizations. And this is also very prominently present in the draft resolution. Just to say that, you know, the forum's contribution is making some interesting contributions to the draft resolutions being prepared. And we know that you will all continue sharing this youth perspective in future resolutions. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you, Sena. So based on that information that we've just been given, we simply thank everyone for their participation in this work. And the debate will be held in the Assembly. This is about pluralism and interethnic dialogue. So there'll be an item on that in the Assembly, promoting cultural pluralism and peace through interfaith and interethnic dialogue. So let's all think together about how we as young parliamentarians can manage diversity within our peoples and how that can contribute to the peaceful development of our societies. Another interesting aspect of this is thinking about what we can commit to with regard to our voters to ensure that no one's left behind, that we're all on the same path.
Bueno, ahora vamos a continuar.
We'll now move on then. Thank you very much for your involvement.
Bueno, vamos a mencionar los países que van.
I'll now mention the countries that will be speaking: Syria, Vietnam, Egypt, Ireland, Palestine, and the Russian Federation. They're the only speakers. Thank you.
Bueno, cedemos la palabra.
I now give the floor to Syria.
Syria.
Syria, please.
Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Syrian parliament, we have a committee for youth called the Committee for Youth and Sports, and there are political parties and NGOs that are concerned with the youth, as well as popular groups. However, the recent events in my country forces me to refer to that, even if briefly. The youth in Syria were living a true renaissance since 2000. However, their priorities changed because of the war that has been raging since 7 years. And youth, the priority for youth now is fighting terrorism. And some of them had to join the army, or they continued in their universities and schools, or to try to confront terrorism, in addition to the pressure on social services. Along with the people, they supported their leadership and they supported their army under the leadership of President Bashar al-Assad. And so Syria today is on the verge of victory against terrorism, whether ISIS or Nusra and other armed groups, and those who have supported them regionally and internationally with the help of friends, including Russia, Iran, and China. Today, the Syrian youth are preparing for the reconstruction and rebuilding of Syria on all levels, educational, cultural, psychological, and the actual rebuilding, physical rebuilding. What I wanted to stress on is the responsibility of the youth parliamentarians to fight terrorism and extremism and external interventions in the affairs of different countries. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. You'd had a few seconds left, in fact. Egypt now has the floor.
Por favor, el micrófono.
Microphone, please.
Thank you. Egypt is witnessing a new era of democracy and empowerment of youth, as the year 2016 was dedicated for youth, and 2017 for women. As a direct result, Egypt youth, not only parliamentaries, get to participate in a monthly forum as well as a yearly youth forum, where they meet the president, top officials, and decision makers to propose and discuss their own ideas, which gives them more opportunities to participate in political strategy buildings. The participation of youth will make a great change in the political life. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Egypt.
Finish her minutes. We divided our talk quickly.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Announced that November 4th to the 10th, Egypt has created the first World Youth Forum. We're hosting 3,000 young, athletes, youngsters, not only parliamentarians, but from different societies. And the hashtag, the official hashtag is We Need to Talk. We're just trying to create a democracy within the public and within the young generation, not only within parliamentarians. So we have a wider base. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. The representative of Ireland has the floor.
Gurmaigad a Caharley was Tammy Fear of Wick and Shall of Lord and Shaw Iganokai Sontasak August Harvey Tawata Shaw for Kursi Olga Grewiacht August and Dean Lahas. Madam Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Irish Parliaments at this very important engagement this morning. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the translation boxes who speaks in Gaelic. I want to first of all refer to an old Gaelic proverb that says Mullanoiga August Chuggy praise or cherish the young and they will flourish. And I think that's the key theme through the course of this morning's engagement. And that's not to patronise young people, but it is to be empowering to them in its sincerest sense. And I speak as someone who held and still holds the record for being the youngest Lord Mayor of my home city of Belfast at the age of 25, and I'm very proud of that standard to bear. That was because my own party and my own political movement of Sinn Féin entrusted me as a young activist to go forward with that responsibility, and trusted the dynamism that young people can bring to political change. In our Senate in Dublin, we recently debated legislation to lower the voting age from 18, as it currently stands in Ireland, to 16 to amend our constitution. And I was heartened and encouraged to hear the honourable representative from Cuba say that that is the current age in his home place as well. If we want to embolden young people, if we want to entrust them with political responsibility to effect political change and do everything that people are advocating for this morning, then the key premise of any democracy and any political change is to entrust and enfranchise those people with the power and the ability to vote for the change that they want to see in society. So Shin Mamed, Guramaigad, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Palestine now has the floor. Palestine?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My thanks go to all colleagues. Some colleagues have talked a while ago about the challenges facing their respective countries, and there are numerous challenges which we share. However, in Palestine, we are still facing the major challenge and the most difficult one, namely to face up to the continuity in the occupation of Palestine by Israel. Some colleagues from other countries might have had similar experiences. Those who were colonized in the past or occupied know what this entails in terms of killing off the hopes of people, young people. 30% of young people from 15 to 29 is the average of our population. Dear colleagues, I do not wish to speak at length. However, I should like to refer to the fact that we in Palestine, we have a specific team focusing on young people, and they are focusing on setting up the plans that would facilitate the implementation of the goals of SDG and the 2030 plan of action. In order to be brief and in order not to refer to the various activities undertaken by the occupation forces, forfeiture of land, confiscation of assets, and the brutality of their behavior, I would simply refer to the suffering of our prisoners in prison. During the 7 years that have elapsed, 45% of the members of parliament of Palestine were imprisoned, and we have only 15 now that are free. Thank you.
Rusia, por
The Russian Federation has the floor.
Уважаемые коллеги,
Dear colleagues, regarding the fourth item of the agenda, I was decreed by co-rapporteurs on a draft resolution to extend our gratitude to the Young Parliamentarians Forum for their participation and their proposals. There is a separate thanks goes to Mr. Smith for being so active in dealing with this issue. The co-rapporteur, Ilya Umahanov, representing the Russian Federation, has passed his greatest and heartfelt thanks for our contribution and for really standing on those amendments that were made.
Thank you.
Ecuador, por favor.
Ecuador has the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And warm greetings to you, Madam Chair, and to all of our colleagues, parliamentarians. It's a pleasure to be here in Russia, in St. Petersburg. And thank you very much for this meeting. I'd like to say that in our country, in Ecuador, vote is possible on an optional basis between the ages of 16 and 18. I'd also like to say that at the age of 18 in Ecuador, you can stand to be a parliamentarian. Our youngest MP is 39, and 22% of candidates in the 2014 elections, we have had a number of young parliamentarians elected. Now, when it comes to the contribution of the resolution of the Assembly and the fourth point in that resolution, we think we should include into it some of the concerns that we young MPs also have when it comes to working towards a fairer and better world. And I think that one of the main battles we all need to wage, all of us parliamentarians from all over the world, is that we need to work towards a fairer world with better distribution of wealth. And there are still many social battles to be waged and a lot of inequality between the rich and the poor. And in order to reach that objective, we need to fight against the power of capital and capitalism over human beings. And that is part of one of the struggles we have been waging in our National Assembly in Ecuador. We're also concerned with the preservation of the environment. And we have reached economic growth, and GDPs all over the world have increased, but this has been at the expense of the environment and the quality of the environment. And I think this is also one of the concerns we might wish to include in our contribution. We young people are also concerned with the environment and the conditions necessary for development. We have to make sure that there are no negative consequences on the environment. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you. We continue with the representative of the Arab Emirates.
Dear brothers and sisters, we do have a proposal concerning our contribution to the celebration of the 20th anniversary of Universal Declaration on Democracy. We would like to state that we need clear plans of action which would empower young people and secure their contribution. In Para 7, we should call on parliaments to promote the participation of young people in parliaments and to set up specific programs and plans of action. We should use the social media in order to communicate with young people, to stress the need to state the principles of honesty, civility, and transparency, to take into account the diversity in various societies when it comes to promoting democracy, to give all members of societies to take part in taking decisions and participating in a responsible way. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Now, we're going to now have a short break. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions. We have some news. We're now going to continue with Israel. Israel has the floor.
Thank you very much. We are doing a lot of progress as well in getting more of the younger generation involved in politics. Part of it was to give the right of vote for 17 years old in regional elections or local elections, by that preparing them for the general election while they are still in the education system in high school. I would just like to refer to what was said before by the Palestinian delegates about Israel and about the younger generation in the Palestinian Authority. If the Palestinian Authority would really care about the younger generation, they would stop the incitement to more violence, more hatred, and more murders. By that, I mean that the Palestinians, actually, if they want a better future, stop paying money to fund terrorism. Stop sending more and more paychecks to whoever murdered as many people as possible or did the most and biggest terrorist activity. By that, you are educating your younger generation to more hatred and more violence. We were talking before how governments are abusing their power to the younger generation to incitement, to lead them to more violence and more terrorism. This doesn't happen just around our region, but in more regions as well. I would say that if you do want a better future for your younger generation, start acting by it, investing the money that goes into terrorism, into education system, a proper one, that share these values. Send it to infrastructure, to schools. This is where you should invest your money instead of that, and that's how you actually create a better future for the younger generation. Thank you very much.
Dada la situación.
Palestine now has the floor as a right of response.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We have listened right now to the representative of the Israeli Knesset. I should merely remind the colleagues about 2 points. The first point is the following. The representative of the Knesset in this meeting, where her own parliament monthly and yearly does enact tens of racist laws, and you all know what is meant by racist laws. If the representative of South Africa is amongst us, he would know exactly what is the meaning of a racist law. These laws are against the Palestinian people and the Palestinian land. So I'm wondering what sort of terrorism she is referring to. Is she referring to occupation, the Israeli occupation? This is the apex of terrorism. Why don't you leave our land and let us work for the benefit of our young people? The most severe obstacle is the occupation. This is the main reason behind terrorism. We call upon all nations to help us put an end to occupation so that we, as young people, we can tap all our resources to promote our human resources. You are talking about our money, but you are confiscating our money, our water, our land. You are confiscating, forfeiting our hope. Hope in a better life, a hope to enjoy freedom and prosperity, just like any other people in the world. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Occupation is behind everything that is underway in the region. The apex of terrorism is occupation. It is occupying our land. And this is the very epitome of terrorism. Thank you.
Damos la palabra a Israel.
Israel now has the floor. And dear colleagues, I would like to say that we also have to continue with our agenda. But we also have, we need to have a room for debate also. So you have the floor, Israel.
Thank you. You're saying that Israel has racist law. The law in the Palestinian Authority says that whoever sells their land to a Jew will be killed. Is that a racist law? Your racist legislation has been racist against Jews for years now. Israel is the only country in the Middle East that is a democracy that gives equal right to all of its citizens, no matter whether they're Muslim, Christian, Druze, Bedouin, Jews, or else. In that sense, I think that it is quite obvious that when you say that the only problem is the occupation, you need to look inside. Have a look on what the problem really is. When you stop inciting to more terrorism, more violence, and more hatred, that's when we will really be able to live and coexist. We coexist in Israel with all of these multiculturalism, different religion. Yet you continue to incite your younger generation to more and more hatred and terrorism. Look on what happened in Gaza with their autonomy. Where did they invest all of their infrastructure money that went, instead of towards water or electricity or education, into terror tunnels, into missile system? Is that peace and coexistence? Or is that more war, hatred, and violence? When you'll be willing to sit and negotiate in the terms of real coexistence between us, without this hatred, without this violence, then you'll be able to see a better future for both of us. I hope it will happen soon.
Gracias.
Thank you. The Russian Federation has the floor.
Dear friends, you know, we have a unique opportunity within the framework of the IPU to look for common grounds to preserve friendship and peace. And our forum of young parliamentarians is the venue for the people who have just embarked on the lively road, and in 15, 30 years, we will be the people that will be governing our countries. Though now we are in the position of high standing as well. And undoubtedly, the death of humans from the acts of terrorism and the death of people under any circumstances is a terrible happening. And I would like to urge you, to call upon you to look for common grounds, using all the opportunities provided by the parliaments of our countries and the necessity in life, because over here we are present at this parliamentary venue, and we should stop accusing each other and accuse one another. But if you have specific things to tell about what parliamentary laws are do not should contradict to the democratic tenets, you should tell so specifically. Our task is to preserve peace, to defend peace, and not to aggravate things. Thank you.
Who did you give the floor?
Palestina, por favor.
Palestine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I do not want to engage in this diatribe. However, we cannot hide the sun using a sieve. There is no way you can negate the fact that Palestine is suffering from the occupation and also what is being suffered by the Israeli people. Why don't you put an end to occupation? Our authority is always calling for peace. Who is building settlements in the occupied territories? Is it the Palestinian Authority or Israel? Who is enacting laws punishing young people below 12 years of age? Who is adamant on not implementing the recommendations of the American, Palestinian, and Israeli Commission? Thank you.
Muy bien.
Now, with apologies, I think we should continue with our agenda, and we need to be able to establish a dialogue on the pace of peace and democracy, and I'd like to ask you to take this into account, please, dear colleagues, and let's now continue with our agenda.
Bueno, nos indican de que Rusia.
I have been told that the Russian Federation wishes to speak. Can I ask you to be brief, please?
Нет, мы выступать будем.
No, we will talk about the agenda, but I would like to state that we have representatives of the All World Youth and Student Forum, and they are here in the conference hall, and they will have to be excused at 12. And if it is okay, let us greet the youngsters who will be legislators in the future. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our colleagues for the interesting statements we've heard. Now, we need to conclude on those interventions for the time being, and we move on to the following item. We will be holding a hearing with the candidates for the IPU chairmanship, and each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and after these presentations, the Forum of Young Parliamentarians will be able to put questions to each candidate and ask them also what sort of part they are considering for us and our forum. We now invite Mrs. Gabriela Cuevas and Madam Yvonne Pasada.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning. Dear friends, young parliamentarians, 51% of the world population is young, that is, people of under 30 years of age. Now, even if they represent the majority of the world population, less than 2% of parliamentarians are under 30 years of age. So we can see that there is a real discrepancy in representation, something even more serious. 3 countries in the world out of 4 have banned people of under 30 years of age from standing for parliamentary elections. And I'd like to begin, if I may, with a personal story. When I was 15, I decided to join a political party. The PAN, the party I have been active in for all my life, and for longer than I would like to admit. When I was 21, I was elected as a member of parliament for the first time, and it's difficult to become a member of parliament when you're 21 in my country, because nobody tells you what you need to do as a legislator. Nobody tells us how we as young people can become empowered. Nobody explains what committees are all about, what friendship groups are for, and nobody explains to us why we should be able to stand up and take the floor and explain what proposals we want to make to change our community or to change our country. And so, since I was first elected at the age of 21, I'd like to say that I was not only the youngest federal MP in my country, I was also the youngest MP in the city of Mexico. I was also head of national delegation, elected for a neighborhood of Mexico called Miguel Hidalgo, and that was when I was only 27. Today, I'm 38 years old. I'm a senator of the Republic of Mexico. I chair the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is probably the most important committee on our Senate. And this is because I had this ability, I had this possibility to stand because I had the support of my political party, and most of all, I had a lot of support from the local young population in my neighborhood, in my city, and in my country. I would also like to say that I have with me the Speaker of the Senate of Mexico today, who has also the Minister for Social Affairs and Social Development, a very young minister, and he's taken part in a number of initiatives, such as the Green Fund in Korea. So he's at the head of the Senate in Mexico, where the average age is 42 years of age. We're a very young Senate, and I'm very proud of being Mexican and of finding myself in this situation. Now, today, at the level of the IPU, we need to look at better opportunities for young people.
And I've been trying to listen and also to retake the different proposals made by different countries and different parliamentarians. This has been a very important exercise that allowed me precisely to that, to make a working plan that is a proposal that is trying to be improved, that is trying to retake all the different ideas during these days, and of course, to make a better one that will be useful for the next 3 years. I am here asking you to improve our IPU. We love our organization, but we need to improve certain areas. One of them is how are we going to include more young parliamentarians in our organization? And this has to do with the work and the responsibility we have in our own countries. First of all, we need to see how well or bad we are doing in our own national legislation. We need to open the doors and we need to open the laws for new generations. This information about 73% of countries without access for persons less than 30 years to elected seats is something that we must change, and that change depends on us. Second, and very important, I am proposing, and you can take one of the brochures, they are at the back side of the room. You're going to see that I am proposing an IPU close to the parliamentarians. And why is important? Because we need to center on the person. If we don't understand that politics is it's being making for the persons, good or bad, and we don't understand that the consequences of our decisions are going to have a huge impact in persons' lives, we are not going to take responsible decisions. So first of all, we need to have a platform for new education and training programs. This can be made online, and of course also in presence, to have some scholarships. There are several universities all around the world that are more than happy to give some spaces for parliamentarians to improve and to build capacities. Of course, we also need to work directly with international organizations. Of course, there is UN, but there are also regional or financial institutions that are helping programs related to youth and to participation of young persons. So I hope to have this opportunity. I would love to have the opportunity to dedicate the next 3 years of my life to our beloved organization. We have a huge challenge now in the world. The world is changing. We need to change too. We need to improve our organization. We need also to have a closer communication with the persons, with the citizens, and of course, with the parliamentarians. We need to work closely with the national parliaments. We need to become an active partner of UN. We have regularly a seat. As the observer, we are at UN. We need to use that seat to express the voices of all the persons, of all the parliamentarians, of women, of youth. We need to raise that voices. For example, next year, it's going to be particularly important. At the UN level, it's going to be discussed the Global Pact for Migration and Refugees. Half of the immigrants and refugees are women. A lot of them are children or young persons. What are we going to say to defend them? What are we going to express during that negotiation of the Global Pact to defend their human rights, or to improve our public policies in order to respect their human rights or to improve their quality of life? We have here a huge responsibility. Us, as parliamentarians, we have a very important mandate. In one side, we are seeing here the importance of the international instruments. We are seeing, for example, why the development goals are such relevant for the world. We are, of course, also seeing this Migration and Refugee Global Pact or the Agreement of Paris about climate change. We have the responsibility to use these huge agreements at the international arena and to translate them into national law, into public policy, and into budget. That's the way these all international instruments are going to really change millions of lives. That depends on us. Here we are. Let's take our responsibility and let's do something together for the young persons of this world. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you very much indeed, Gabriela. I'd like to invite Elena Avasieva to ask a question.
Esteemed Ms. Gabriela, we welcome you to Russia. We welcome you to Russia. You've been dealing politics for a long time. It is you that know a lot, being a woman, a young woman, how difficult it is to establish oneself at the political Olympus. But because you are now at the political Olympus, what is the most optimal age for a young person you believe is optimal to become engaged, to start becoming active, which issues will you raise on the agenda? And as far as I can gather from your report, you will also be trying to support the agenda items of youth at international venues. So what is the age that one should start doing politics, you believe?
Ya. Invitamos.
Could I invite Abdul Rifa to ask a question? This will be the second question.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a very good speech, Ms. Gabriel, and I would like to ask you, being one of the youngest parliament of your region when you were elected, what is your vision for the young people, young parliamentarians in IPU, and what extra role the young parliamentarians can do in IPU if you are elected as the president of IPU? Thank you.
Bueno, invitamos a.
Let's invite Gabriela to reply to the questions. You have 2 minutes to reply to each question. You have the floor.
Well,
Just a few months ago, I welcomed a delegation of students from Stanford University in the Mexican Senate. We had a chat, and in fact, I was asking them a lot of questions rather than them asking me questions. And I said, why is it so difficult for politicians to communicate with young people? And this young Chinese student said that we were wrong in thinking that politics is learned when you're young. We need to focus on children. We need to talk about our love for our country with our children. We need to talk about the importance of civics, of voting as soon as possible, of the importance of our country. And that's why we think it's very important to talk with children as young as 9 years of age and explaining the Constitution. It's actually very difficult to explain the procedure for amending the Constitution to a young child. So I realized that politics needs to be something that we share, something that brings us together, as well as the symbols of our country. We need to understand why we have the right to vote and why we have the right to elect officials. We need to understand why it's important to protect our communities. We need to understand that politics shouldn't be divorced from people and societies, but it's societies and people that create politics. Part of the problem we have in the world is that we have politicians on one side and the people on the other. And if we don't understand that in politics we need to reflect the will of everybody, children, adults, women, men, there won't be any future for politics. If we really want the world to change, we need young blood to be flowing to the heart. Otherwise, our societies will die. And that young blood, that new blood, will remain in the children, but will be denied to everybody else. So what I would say to young parliamentarians is that we've moved forward a great deal in the past few years, but today, young parliamentarians now have a voice, they have a seat on the executive committee of the IPU. We've seen that there are an increasing number of young parliamentarians under the age of 30 around the world. It's not enough, but the trend is a good one. We're going in the right direction. I think, though, as soon as possible, we need to draw up an action plan. And it's not just more words or more thoughts. We need this agenda, because I've been through this experience and I know that we have important responsibilities and we need to assume them from a young age. We need to see young people having more opportunities to learn. We need to give them more opportunities to express themselves. Young people need to know that no one's going to be denied the floor because of their age or judged on their youth. And I don't think that should be the case. I'm convinced that we all need to have the same opportunities, irrespective of our gender or our age. And we need to ensure that that's the case within this forum, and we need to take that into every other branch of the IPU. And before I finish, I'd just like to ask each and every one of you for your vote. Of course, I'm in a campaign, and we need to ask for your vote. But also, I want to ask you to make a joint effort within the campaign over the next 3 days of joining forces and focusing our efforts over the next 3 years to build an IPU that can bring a better world for more parliamentarians around this planet. Thank you.
Con las disculpas del caso.
I apologize, but we need to move on with the agenda. So please bear in mind that we're not going to get the time for any further questions, but you can ask questions directly to the candidate later. So thank you very much, Gabriela. Let's move on and invite Ms. Yvonne Pasada to the podium.
Gracias, estimada.
Thank you, Yvonne. Please, I invite you to take the floor. Thank you very much indeed, Chair. Dear colleagues, at this forum, the young parliamentarians here at IPU, I'd like to say a very good morning to you, and I'd like to thank you for all of the work that you are doing, which forces all of us here in the IPU to take steps to ensure that in our parliaments we have a better representation of young parliamentarians. I'd just like to say, for those of you who don't know me, that I've been a member of the Executive Committee at the IPU. On 2 occasions, I was Vice President of the IPU. So as a result, I know very well the workings of the IPU, and I know each and every parliament very well. I'd also like to say that I am very committed to working extremely hard, to seeking to achieve peace and democracy, ways in which we can consolidate democracy so that all democratic countries can enjoy that right, including young people. Complete democracy won't be achieved unless we have young people in our parliaments. And I think we need to take steps to achieve that. Some of the steps we need to take, we need to think about very carefully together. We believe that young parliamentarians have been participating actively at IPU assemblies, and it's very important for them to have their forums, but on the other hand, it's extremely important that they participate actively in the assemblies, in the committees, where they can express the position that reflects the interests of young people. In our parliamentary agendas, we also need to think about the possibility of lowering the age of eligibility to be a parliamentarian. A study needs to be carried out in much greater depth by the IPU to look at that issue. And if I was elected president of the IPU, then that would be one of the first items on my agenda. If we really want change, if we really want to improve the participation of young people, we need to show that. We need to set an example, both in our actions and our words. Some people say that young people don't get involved enough in politics. But I think politicians don't do enough to make politics attractive to young people. We don't express issues well enough. We don't explain why it's important to participate. And young people all over the world, not only in my country, are far more engaged and committed in very important issues such as human rights, such as fundamental freedoms, overcoming conflict. And sometimes they demonstrate, and parliaments and governments realize that there are issues that they need to take on board on their agendas in order to change things from within. We also need to be aware of people who are claiming rights. The agenda, the rights that have been achieved in my country include marital rights and other rights that were fought for by social movements. And young people were at the very forefront of those social movements, forcing the politicians to change things from within. So it's not true that young people aren't interested in politics. Sometimes we don't do enough to get young people interested in politics. But young people are committed in other ways and engaged in other ways. So I'd just like to say to you that I'm going to be committed to ensure better participation of young people. Without your participation, we won't be able to make the changes that we need to make. And I am at your service for seeking those transformations, whether or not I'm elected president. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'd like to invite the same people to ask the questions to the candidate, and the same questions that we asked to the previous candidate. Elena, you have the floor.
Ms. Ivona, we welcome you again to Russia, to the Russian Federation. We would like to wish you victory during the election campaign of the IPU president. You've been doing politics a lot. And you might be observing that it's really hard for a young man or a young woman to become a politician of a high level, to become either a senator or an MP. What do you think is an optimal age? What's the upper limit for a young person, do you think? Well, for a person to be believed young, to be called young. And second, what kind of issues of the young generation will you include in your agenda, and at what international venues will you report those issues, and will you voice them?
I think one of the things I was saying was that we need to study very carefully what is going on in reality all across the world, and we need to do that very quickly. The issue of lowering the age for eligibility to elected posts is a very important issue, so that parliaments can change and evolve. As to the age for a young person, or the upper age limit, I don't know, but in getting involved in politics, getting decision-making roles is very important, and what that means is getting into parliament very often. And that's an issue that we need to study very carefully. if there is an age of eligibility to be a parliamentarian or a senator, if you have the capacity, the abilities to be a senator, why should there be an age limit at all? If you have the skills, the competence, then why should there be an age limit? In some parliaments, you have an age limit in one of the houses, but not in the other. But my commitment in this issue is, at any rate, for the IPU to look very carefully about how we can deal with this issue, because it's such a vital issue. And we need to see young people in assemblies and in the upper house and in parliaments generally.
Gracias.
Thank you. Abdullah, I invite you to take the floor for the next question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ewan. As you have been very actively engaged in the IPU Executive Committee and the Vice President of the Executive Committee before, I would like to ask what will the role of young parliamentarians will be if you are elected as the President, and how far or how extent we can engage in the IPU events and activities. Thank you.
Well, these are things that will need to involve political decisions, and I think I have experience in taking political decisions, and I think youth needs to be involved in the structures of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, in the bodies where major decisions are taken. And for as long as those structures don't allow young people to participate, then we need to try to ensure that that changes and that young people do get involved, so that we can develop an agenda that reflects young people's issues. That's a vital issue, and it's an area where you need to take a very comprehensive view. We need women, we need men, and we need young people if we are to change our reality. Thank you, Yvonne. That concludes the hearing with candidates. And let's move on with our agenda. We know very well about the 19th World Festival of Youth and Students, which is taking place in the Russian Federation in Sochi. And there was an invitation, which I think the delegation is going to talk about. Elena?
My dear friends, once again, I'm so happy to see you all in the Russian Federation, because for us it's a special honor to host parliamentarians of the whole world. In parallel to this international event, to the IPU and the Youth Forum, there's yet another international event that is going on in Sochi, which you all know about, which is the World Festival of Youth and Students. And on behalf of the World Festival of Youth and Students, addressing the 137th Assembly in our Youth Forum, there's been a letter. We are being trusted, we're being loved, and I won't read it to you. That's just the essence of the letter, not to lose any more time. I would like to pass this letter over to the podium. And now, may I ask a couple of minutes of your attention, please, because I would like to brief you what's happening now at the festival. Already now, right at this moment in Sochi, the Olympic city, the 19th World Festival of Youth and Students is underway. Let me remind you that it's the third time that we're hosting it for the last 70 years. The number of the festival is 19. Today we host 20,000 participants, young delegates from over 170 countries. However, there's been much more people willing and eager to take part. The official site of the festival registered 125,000 young people. Among them, over 50,000 are foreign participants, coming from 183 countries all over the globe. 75,000 participants expressed their wish to take part in the festival from Russia. 5,000 volunteers will assist the event that are aged 18 and over. However, amongst those volunteers, we have a record setter. The oldest volunteer is at the age of 85, and he has already come to Sochi, and he is already helping the participants and the delegates. According to the procedure of the preparation to the festival, in May this year in Sri Lanka, the third international preparatory meeting took place, during which the program of the festival was adopted and an international committee was formed that is now vested with such issues as coordinating the preparatory process. In June this year, the second meeting of the International Organizing Committee took place. They came over to Russia. It was headed, the meeting was headed by the head of the organizing committee, the first deputy of the head of the administration of the Russian Federation, of the Russian government, Mr. Sergei Kiriyenko. All the participants of the festival obtained the visa already, free of charge. And in a simplified fast-track procedure, the organizers of the festival provided all participants with the accommodation, a three-time a day meal, and the official uniform of the festival. From October 14 to 17, in 15 different regions of Russia, there will be a regional program for foreign participants of the festival. Participation in the regional program is free of charge. Russian regions will be visited by about 1,500 of foreign participants. Those territories of Russia, those regions of Russia that will host foreign guests are from Vladivostok to Kaliningrad. In each region there will be a certain cherry on the cake, a flashpoint. For example, Yekaterinburg, that I'm representing as a senator, the participants of this festival, together with our young people, will knit the biggest wool shawl for the Guinness Book of Record. Why? Because my region and Russia sometimes is recognized because of this work of craft. You know, the wool shawl, even Ms. Zikina once sang, the shawl from Orenburg. It's a famous song from Russia. So here in St. Petersburg, there will be a special address to the participants of the Youth Forum, and I hope that in 25 years we will host this festival again, so the capsule will be buried in here. Also today, here in St. Petersburg, we have had participants of the festival from different countries. They've been here on the podium, and yesterday in Moscow there was a gala parade in which 30,000 young people took part, and they were parading the center of Moscow, 8 kilometers. Just imagine that. People walked all that distance, and it was a true carnival event. I think it was even cooler than in Brazil, because we had just young people there bearing and carrying their flags high. I even know that a lot of consul representatives joined their delegation, and it was truly a sight. The opening of the festival will be held today. It will be broadcast across all Russian TV channels. It will be a grand event, on a par with Olympic Games. So I recommend to you, if you have an opportunity to watch it, broadcast live on TV, do that. On the 21st of October, there will be a closing ceremony. Just a couple of words remains to be said. Amongst our colleagues in here, we have people who will go to this festival, and we're so happy that you have agreed to join us in Sochi. I will happily help you and assist you during all this time. All the organizational issues we will discuss with you. 19th of October, that's when we leave. Guys, you just don't believe how happy Russia is to welcome you to 2 international venues, here in St. Petersburg and there in Sochi. So let's continue this dialogue and let's go to Sochi, all of us. Come on. Thank you very much.
Vamos a Sochi. Gracias, Elena.
Thank you, Elena. Well, Zaina is now going to talk about another issue. Thank you.
I'll try to bring as much enthusiasm as Elena in what I'm going to say. Just very quickly, you have an activity report on the youth-related activities that have taken place recently. You heard Rafael Igbokwe on Nigeria, Abdullah Rifao on the seminar of young parliamentarians in Asia Pacific. Now, I will just focus on two important coming events and matters. The first is the 4th Global IPU Conference of Young Parliamentarians. The IPU has been organizing a global conference for young parliamentarians from the whole world since 2014. This year we're organizing the 4th conference, and it's taking place in Ottawa, Canada, on 17 and 18 November 2017. The invitations have been sent to all your parliaments, to IPU delegations, so please make sure that you see the invitation. It's also on the IPU website, in case you don't have it personally. It's on the IPU website. Have a look and make sure to be there so that this connection between all of you continues from an IPU event to another IPU event. The second matter I wanted to draw your attention on is that we will produce our famous report on youth participation in national parliaments. The statistics I shared with you earlier today, it comes from this report, and we publish it every 2 years. The next one is going to be published in 2018, and we need all of you. We need your help in filling out the questionnaire on youth participation in national parliaments. It has been distributed to the delegations of parliaments that had elections recently, or of parliaments that never responded to our survey. So we count on you to make sure that we receive information on the state of youth participation in your respective parliaments. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. This is all I had to say.
Gracias, Zaina.
Thank you, Zina. We'll move on with the agenda then. We'll invite Max Hervé to speak about the UNDP, please.
Gracias, sean bienvenidos.
Thank you, welcome. Please share your thoughts with us now.
Hello, everyone. Members of Parliament, we are delighted to be here to share with you very briefly an introduction to the second Global Parliamentary Report of 2017 on parliamentary oversight, Parliament's power to hold government to account. So briefly, the purpose of the report is to provide a global perspective on how parliamentary oversight is practiced, give recommendations for parliaments, but also for other actors, political parties, governments, and civil society on how parliamentary oversight can be strengthened, and then finally to act as a catalyst for a renewed focus on oversight in parliaments. And the hope that we have is that it will stimulate not only discussion in national parliaments, but also action to strengthen the oversight function. And the future of the positive development of parliaments is in large part dependent on parliamentary oversight, and who other than young parliamentarians should be engaged in that. So it's really great to have a chance to speak to you today. Why is it important? Why have we produced a full report? Well, first, improved policies is one of the outcomes that can come from oversight. It can identify gaps in legislation and policies, and it can help make sure that we have value for money for the policies that we implement. Second, it can improve the parliamentary processes. It can help make Parliament more transparent. It's an important way of combating corruption. I mean, you can ask yourself the question, what if we didn't have oversight? The simple fact of knowing that one might be questioned, one might be held to account, be required to justify one's action, create a different mindset among governments and their administrations. And to stay a little bit on topic, an honest and responsive government is one of the things that matters most to people around the world. At least that's what was expressed in the huge My World survey that was conducted by the UN leading up to the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in 2015, where Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals was adopted. And the world leaders did respond with a vision in which democratic governance, inclusion is a central part of Agenda 2030. And also, the agenda acknowledges the essential role of parliaments through their enactment of laws, but also in the role of ensuring accountability and monitoring of the effective implementation. So it's really, you could say, a mark of Parliament's relevance in the 21st century, and that's why it's really important. The Agenda 2030 also highlights the importance of youth throughout the report. It is about the planet, it's about the people, it's about future generations, so it is absolutely essential. And the recently launched UN International Interagency Guiding Principles on Youth and the Sustainable Development Goals are quite clear in highlighting that young people are accelerators that can bring their expertise, their know-how, their innovations, their solutions, their networks, their different perspectives. And as young parliamentarians, you can be the facilitators of that. You have a very unique position. But what constitutes an effective system of oversight? We've asked, more than 150 parliaments have responded. We've had more than 300 MPs, and what we highlight is three aspects. There's a need for a very strong mandate with clearly defined powers for Parliament to hold government to account. But you need committed and willing participants. You need parliamentarians who take up the challenge that it sometimes is to conduct oversight, but also the opportunity to have impact. You also need to have the sufficient capacity and resources for parliamentarians to give teeth to the mandate and their commitment. And that includes independent research resources, but also what we have termed a sliding scale of sanctions. And it's not easy in practice. That's what becomes clear from what we learn. There are challenges. And some of the key challenges expressed in this report relates to the political environment that is for conducting oversight. Party politics can be a challenge at times. Resources, as mentioned, competing demands, parliamentary powers, and then the commitment of MPs themselves. And members of parliament who responded to the research in the report highlighted resource and capacity constraints as perhaps the single greatest challenge to effective oversight. And in relation to that, further to critical resource or information gulfs that exist come out quite clearly in the report is one, the information gulf between the executive and the parliament can hamper oversight. So it places parliament in a disadvantaged position in terms of access to information and resources. But also between what we have termed relatively well-resourced established parliaments and emerging or lesser resourced parliaments. So that's a second resource gulf. That's a challenge that comes out. And with that, I think we'll leave it to Karine.
Good morning. As Matt said, it was a pleasure for IPU and UNDP to work together on this global parliamentary report that focuses on oversight. We've talked about some of the challenges that were identified by all of those that were surveyed, and I just want to maybe quickly go through some of the solutions and the strategies that were identified as a way forward to really enhance oversight in your parliaments. So I think there were three big avenues for reform that were identified. First of all, oversight requires adequate political space in order to be able to, have an impact. Second point is that oversight requires personal commitment. So even if you have the space, if you MPs don't take action, nothing will happen. And the third one is that oversight requires resources and capacity. Now, I'll start with a quote by one of your colleagues who said, "The important thing is to put government under pressure, even if it is your own party that is in government." And this comes to the main question of who is responsible for oversight. And this is a question we've asked all of the participants, and everyone says we're all responsible for oversight, majority or opposition. But then when we go one step further, we understand that the opposition feels that in practice, they are the ones that actually carry out most of the oversight activities and that government is less engaged. Now, of course, if you ask government representatives, they say they don't agree with that opinion. But the point is that there needs to be a clear understanding of who is responsible for carrying out this important task. And in order to do that, this needs to be understood by both opposition and majority, that this is a common responsibility. It needs to be understood by political parties, that this is a common responsibility. And it also needs to be understood by the government, because there needs to be a good coordination and cooperation between parliament and government in order for oversight to take part. So this culture of oversight needs to filter into parliaments and then in the government system in order to have some change. And last but not least, with regard to political space, MPs need to be protected in order to be able to carry out oversight properly. So the whole question of protection and maintenance of respect of the human rights of parliamentarians is key for MPs to perform oversight. Another interesting quote that we've picked up on by one of your colleagues is, "Effective oversight is where an MP plays his or her role independently and boldly with courage." And I think the term courage is very important, because oversight is not easy, as Matt's mentioned. You are often torn between your constituencies and the national interest. You are often torn between your party guidelines and objectives and your own objectives. And oversight is not also easy to sell to the public and to your constituencies. So it's not an easy and necessarily immediately rewarding job, but it is an important job to carry out. And I'll tell you what are the incentives and motivations that MPs identified. Oversight is important if you are seeking probity, assessing the presence or absence of corruption. Oversight is important if your objective is fidelity, assessing the degree to which the government is following the law. Oversight is important if you have an objective of equity, assessing the fairness of the government distribution of costs or benefits. Oversight is interesting to you if you want to aim for efficiency, assessing the ratio of costs to benefits. And if you're aiming for effectiveness, oversight is also key if you want to assess the degree to which actions have an impact for your populations. The last quote I want to share with you is this one. "So what we each do is build up our own network of people in ministries and NGOs who are constantly feeding you information." This links to the point that Mats was saying about capacity and resources. And there are major discrepancies both amongst countries in terms of their support and their capacity, amongst parliaments and governments, with a major gulf in favor of governments in terms of capacity, resources, access to information, and amongst MPs within the parliament as well that don't have the same support and capacity to carry out oversight. So you need to be creative, and we need to find ways to address those gulfs. First, parliamentary autonomy is extremely important for you to be able to carry out effective oversight. Second, you need to build structures that have a clear mandate for oversight. So look at the rules and the structures of your committees and the power that they have. Do they have any teeth? Can they have any impact on the government? You need to have access to information. Now, government can give you information, but create your own networks, as this quote mentioned. You know, work with civil society, with partners, with national audit institutions, with ombudspersons in order to have access to information and to better hold your governments to account. Now, the report that we have just produced, IPU and UNDP, is this report, the Global Parliamentary Report. It will be distributed this afternoon at the IPU at a special session this afternoon. I've put behind here an executive summary of the report. You can pick it up on your way. It's in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic, so go for it. And you will find in these reports 28 recommendations to parliamentarians on how to build their oversight capacity and perform a better role in this area. And so I hope you will inspire yourselves from that. IPU and UNDP are at your disposal to support you in your work. And please give us feedback on how this has been useful and how we can, better support you in taking action. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Well, thank you very much for those presentations. We're delighted to have heard them. We now call upon Raphael for his report. And this relates to activities that have been carried out in that country.
Thank you very much. I would like to go straight to the point, just to emphasize some oversight activities the young parliamentarians have been able to push forward in Nigeria. First, I must lay the foundation that as a forum, we were able to win the trust of young people, them seeing an outlet through which they can channel their grievances and challenges, because before now, there's no connection between the young people and government. And seeing people in government now volunteering themselves to be available to assist them builds a lot of confidence. And this makes any issue they want to run to the Young Parliamentarians Forum as an advocacy group in Parliament that can help them champion their cause. And we have a number of cases. I'll take quickly one. We have a program in Nigeria called the National Youth Service Corps, which is a compulsory one-year service of all youths who had graduated from university or polytechnic. So you must do a 1 year. So it's mandatory, and government takes care of this, making sure all graduated students are absorbed and they are paid stipends, which is about $50 per month. And in this particular year, that was 2 years ago, there seems to be some challenge where the NYSC came out to say, no, they cannot be able to mobilize or absorb all the young people that graduated in the year due to low funding from government. And the Young Parliamentary Forum were available. The youths, through the youth organizations, came to us on this challenge, and we took it up. First, we had to move a motion on the floor challenging that decision by the NYSC group. This further strengthened us, and the resolution was passed to invite both the DG, Director General of the NYSC, the Minister of Youth, and Minister of Finance, why the privilege due to young people in Nigeria should not be carried out in that year. And this agitation and action by Parliament drew the attention of government and the presidency. And the president was able to direct for special intervention fund to be released from the service-wide vote. The service-wide vote is a special fund meant for utilization by the president for special intervention. And that year, all students that had graduated and qualified to go for the youth service were all absorbed. And there was palpable peace in the land. We had other issues, youth negligence on part of authorities in a particular school, Yaba College of Technology. Due to negligence, a young student who had requested for medical attention was neglected, and she lost her life. Miss Comfort Dazan, may her soul rest in peace. We had to take this because she comes from a poor family and nobody to speak for her. So the Young Parliamentarians Forum, through a motion, we also called the attention of the authority, and we got the government agency to take necessary action against those people who derelict in their duties in paying attention to the young lady. And several other issues, especially in the area of peace intervention. There was a report of killing of young people in Turkey. This generated a lot of anger in Nigeria, and the youths mobilized for reprisal attacks on the Turkish institutions and organizations. But we were able to also intervene through the National Association of Nigerian Students. Through a motion, we drew the attention of government to this issue. And with the resolution of the House, we were able to play an intermediary role between the students and the government of Turkey through the embassy. And we were able to get together a peace meeting between the ambassador and the leadership of the students. And that ended up with the embassy sponsoring some of the Nigerian youth officials to Turkey to see things for themselves, because like the embassy said, what they read in the media was not a true reflection of what was happening. And that gave us a very rare privilege where we went and saw things for ourselves, and I think the students were impressed, and that calmed down issues. And same thing happened in South Africa. We had this issue of extrajudicial killings, where a lot of Nigerians were also attacked. If you had followed, then it raised a lot of issues, and the young people in Nigeria also mobilized to burn down all South African businesses, MTN, whatever, chicken licking. But we had to also, we saw this as a responsibility. We came in because reports were also brought to us by the youth groups. But we said, no, listen, in every situation, we can always, there's an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Why not let's sit? Let's engage our government to take the necessary step to get the government of South Africa to protect Nigerians and protect Africans anywhere they are. And this also ended up, we getting a bilateral meeting between the youth representatives and the ambassador of South Africa. And these interventions and engagements helped in dousing the tension, and steps were taken by the ambassador to meet with our foreign affairs minister and the government. And also the parliament, out of our resolution, sent a delegation of parliamentarians from Nigeria, and we went on a visit to the parliament of South Africa to make strong the case of extrajudicial killings. With these signs, the young people were confident that they had people out there handling their cases who are ready to speak for them, fight for them, and defend them. So I think that is one area I want to commend the IPU for the initiative of encouraging the formation and establishment of youth caucuses and youth forums in parliaments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raphael, once more, for your great, interesting and interesting experience. Actually, I just came in when you are already submitting, but from what I've heard, at least I know it's an interesting and inspiring experience. Thank you very much. So, honorable colleagues, I want to invite you to ask a few questions or share remarks with our distinguished guests and discuss parliamentary overview from your perspective. I'm giving floor to the few members who want to speak. Sudan. Starting with Sudan, Malaysia. Malaysia? Malaysia.
Okay, we'll go back. Ethiopia.
Ethiopia? Kuwait. Kuwait. Yes. Yes, I start
Sudan,
with
Malaysia, Ethiopia, Kuwait.
Okay. Sudan, you may have the floor, please. On oversight, particularly. Okay?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Please allow me to start with an introduction. On the level of the Sudan, we had a major event, which is the national dialogue. The Sudanese national dialogue discussed a number of highly important political matters, which included a political and social dialogue. And we represented 60% of the participants in the dialogue. The dialogue pertained to issues of peace, of the economy, of identity, and the regime of government in the Sudan. And the youth participants were able to be part of that dialogue. In the Sudan, we have a parliamentarian body which is composed of around 100 MPs, young MPs, who are highly involved. We have more than 60 political parties in our national parliament, and we have a good representation at the level of the parliamentarian leadership through the different commissions which represent the standing commissions as well, are represented with around 80% of youth participation. And this is with regard to oversight. The issues raised in the context of oversight, I think here we have an important matter to discuss, which is the right to peace, the efforts against drug trafficking and employment. There are some global ideas that we can discuss in this context with regard to migration and youth employment. There is also the issue of religious extremism as well as atheism. And we are always calling for the middle ground to fight religious extremism, including atheism. And also with regard to our young participants, we have also one category of the youth, which is adolescents, and the adolescents also need efforts directed at them to fight unemployment. I think these are matters that require our attention and interest, and the Sudan today is a passageway for migration.
Sorry, we need to go to the next country, that is Malaysia. Oh, okay.
Thank you for giving the floor to speak. Greetings from Malaysia. As a young MP, I have...
Excuse me?
Yes.
A moment. Please, could we kindly stick to a matter that is on this? Oh, the questions that are being asked. They will not go side overboard.
Yeah.
Strictly to the questions, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
And 1 minute per person, because it's almost...
Yeah, I think young MPs are lacking support in because government is a big organizations. There are a lot of projects, a lot of issues that young MPs has no experience or understanding. That's why the parliamentary support in terms of research and also support in that sense must be provided in all over the world. Second thing is that as a young MP, you are young and your political experience or your political standing is not high in your party. If you spoke up against your government, you will be, if you are government MP, you might not be able to be fielded as a candidate the next election. As if you are opposition MPs, you'll be persecuted or prosecuted or whatever, taken actions. So these are the issues that young MPs are grappling with. Of course, I think we need to have to speak up because have the courage. Today I learned the word courage to speak up. I believe most MPs here are facing similar problems where you are within the party or whether you are in a member of parliament for the government or member of parliament for oppositions, you will face tremendous pressure to speak up. Last, I want to just say a few things. Just one thing, yeah? I think MPs, young MPs now, we are representing, there are two groups of young people now. One group of young people is like good education, having a lot of empowerment and connected. Another group of young people are disempowerment. They don't have, they are being marginalized. They're hopeless, they have no future. I think young MPs here must speak up issues of those people who have no future and hopeless. Or else they will become become these terrorists and etc. So thank you very much.
Yes, Ethiopia. We have the floor, Ethiopia. Okay. Yes. Please kindly respond to the questions, yeah?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Ethiopia young people have played important roles in economy, political, and cultural development efforts. Thus, young people has been participating in the country's development efforts through their own initiatives and the government recognition, on the other hand, through being embraced by various associations and organizations, groupings that are supported by the government. In our case, we have faced challenges in our country. Large number of rural youths are migrated to urban areas because of urbanization. So the government working creates smooth environment to their economic or to job opportunities. Around 10 billion budgeted the government to youth. So even we have youth development groups. They are working on experience to increase or to empower in political participation. In Ethiopia, we have two houses, House of Federation and House of Representatives, or lower house and upper house. So youth participators increase youth participation in political activities because of the youth development group. So I think this is enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethiopia. I think last we have Kuwait.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As regards priorities, we believe that our National Assembly focuses on youth. It is an opportunity we take, that we do believe in youth, and we do so with concrete steps. I hope that our fellow MPs would welcome Kuwaiti parliamentarians in order to advance this type of work. We have two students that had excellent results, and they are with us in the Young Parliamentarian Forum. We hope that in the future they will have their seats with Dr. Sahar Al-Ali. I would like to welcome them with us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kuwait. Let's quickly go to item number 9 on our agenda. Please. Okay.
thank you very much for these comments and interventions. And we see that there are a lot of commonalities also. Whether you're young or older, I think you face the same challenges in terms of oversight. I'd like to invite you all to come this afternoon at 3 p.m. In the reading room in the main palace, because we will have 3 hours of debate on the findings of this report and the strategies to really build effective oversight in your parliaments. And I think a lot of the issues that you raised, sir, from Malaysia will also be tackled, how to find the right balances and you know, make an impact for your country. So thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's quickly turn to our item number 9 on the agenda. Zainab, can you please?
Sure, Madam Chair. Thank you. As you know, the forum has youth overview reports. We talked about these reports earlier. And the chairperson wanted to make sure that you knew the names of the 2 persons who have been selected to draft written contributions to the draft resolutions. And these are Mr. Kalobo from Zambia, a representative of Africa on the board of the Forum of Young MPs, and Mrs. Sharon Haskell from Israel, representing the 12+ on the board. So each one of the 2 resolutions that will be discussed and adopted at the 138th Assembly will be covered by each one of them. So this was the point here, Madam Chairperson. Thank you very much. One last point. We have with us here Andy Williamson. Andy is here. He's seated just there. And Andy is joining us at this assembly as the author of the next e-Parliament report. The e-Parliament report is a very important IPU publication, and this time around it will focus, in addition to focusing on how parliaments use technology, it will also focus very much on how parliamentarians are using social media, new technologies in their work. So Andy is here to carry out some interviews. Please, the ones interested, you can contact him. He's here in this room now, so you can exchange your business cards, etc., to be in touch. And there is also a survey on which Andy will be able to give you more information. Please contact him because we want a youth perspective in this e-Parliament report. He's seated just here at your disposal for now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Did you mention their names? The names of yes. Okay, thank you very much, Madam Zainab. I don't know. We are done? Okay. Thank you very much, honorable colleagues. I think this comes to the end of our meetings for today. It was a pleasure chairing up a meeting and having a discussion with all of you, and we look forward to hear more contributions from you when it regards to youth and the young people globally. Thank you very much, and then we are looking forward to seeing you in Canada, Ottawa. I hope majority of us shall attend. Thank you. Have a nice evening and have a nice day.
Can I give you all the photo? And remember, photo.